7 days after my grandfather's funeral, a lawyer gave me an old brass key and said, "Your grandfather wanted you to have this." I had no idea that key would lead me to a hidden mountain secret, millions of dollars, and the shocking truth about my parents' deaths. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Now let's get into the story. My name is Ethan Carter, and the day my lawyer handed me an old brass key was the day I discovered that everything I believed about my family was a lie. I was 34 years old, living alone in a small apartment in Denver, Colorado. I worked as a mechanic, fixing other people's broken machines while quietly trying to ignore the fact that my own life felt broken too. I was 6 feet tall, with an athletic build from years of physical work, short dark brown hair, light stubble, and tired blue eyes that always looked older than my age. I wore simple clothes most days, faded jeans, work boots, and a dark gray jacket that had become part of my identity. 3 weeks earlier, my grandfather, Walter Carter, had died at the age of 89. He had raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 9 years old. To me, he wasn't just a grandfather. He was my entire world. He taught me how to fish, how to repair engines, how to survive heartbreak, and how to stand back up after life knocked me down. And then one cold October morning, he was simply gone. The funeral was small. Just me, a few old friends of his, and a lawyer named Richard Hayes. After everyone left, Richard approached me quietly. "Ethan," he said, handing me a small wooden box. "Your grandfather asked me to give this to you exactly. 7 days after his funeral, 7 days later, I sat alone in my apartment and opened the box. Inside was an old brass key. Nothing else. No letter, no explanation. Just a key." I called Richard immediately. "There has to be some mistake," I told him. There was silence on the phone. Then he sighed. "There's one more thing." The next morning I drove to his office. Richard looked nervous. He opened a file cabinet and removed an envelope marked with my name. "Your grandfather told me to give you this only if you found the key." Inside was a handwritten note. It read, "Ethan, if you're reading this, then I've run out of time. The key opens storage unit 247, Silver Peak Mountain. Go alone, trust no one. And remember, I never lied to you. Love, Grandpa." I stared at the letter. Silver Peak Mountain was nearly 300 miles away, and the phrase "I never lied to you" bothered me more than anything else. Because why would he need to say that? 2 days later, I packed my truck and started driving. The mountain roads were covered in fog. As I climbed higher, I noticed something strange. Silver Peak wasn't a tourist destination. There were no hotels, no visitors, no signs, only forest. After 6 hours, I reached an old rusted gate. Behind it stood a massive concrete facility built directly into the mountain itself. I checked the address 3 times. It matched. The place looked abandoned, yet somehow the lights were still on. I walked toward a security booth. An elderly guard looked at me through thick glasses. "Name?" he asked. "Ethan Carter." The man's face changed. He stood up immediately. "We've been waiting for you." My blood turned cold. "What?" He opened the gate. "Storage unit 247 belongs to the Carter family." Family? I followed him down a long underground hallway. The walls were made of concrete and steel. Security cameras watched every movement. Eventually, we stopped in front of a giant metal door. 247. My hands shook as I inserted the brass key. The lock clicked. The door slowly opened. I expected to find boxes, old furniture, family memories. Instead, I found something impossible. The storage unit was enormous, at least 20,000 square feet. There were luxury cars, antique furniture, rows of paintings, hundreds of filing cabinets, stacks of gold bars, and cash. More cash than I had ever seen in my entire life. I couldn't breathe. The guard stood behind me. "Your grandfather built quite an empire." I turned around. "What empire?" He looked confused. "You really don't know?" I spent the next 6 hours searching the unit. I found photographs, documents, newspaper articles. And slowly, piece by piece, my grandfather's real life emerged. Walter Carter wasn't just a retired carpenter. He had once owned one of the largest transportation companies in the Western United States. In the 1980s, his company had been worth hundreds of millions of dollars, but then suddenly he disappeared. He sold everything, vanished, and spent the next 40 years pretending to be an ordinary man. Pretending. The word echoed in my mind. Had my entire childhood been a lie? Then I found a locked metal box. The brass key fit perfectly. Inside was a videotape. Luckily, there was an old television and player nearby. I pressed play. The screen flickered, and there he was, my grandfather. He looked younger, stronger, but his eyes were the same. "Ethan," he said, "if you're watching this, then I failed to tell you the truth while I was alive." I felt tears forming. "I wasn't the man you thought I was." He paused. "In 1987, I made a terrible mistake." He explained that his business partner, Vincent Graves, had betrayed him. Vincent had used their company to launder money for dangerous criminals. When Walter discovered the truth, he tried to stop him. But Vincent fought back. People died. Innocent people. Including my parents. I froze. "No, no, no." My grandfather continued speaking. "The car accident that killed your mother and father was not an accident." My entire body went numb. "I spent the rest of my life hiding you, because Vincent promised he would. Finish what he started." I couldn't breathe. My parents, murdered, all these years. And Grandpa had known. He had hidden me, protected me. The video continued. "Vincent never stopped searching. If you're watching this, there's a chance he's still alive." The screen went black. I sat there for what felt like hours. Then I heard footsteps. I turned. The old security guard was standing in the doorway, except now he wasn't smiling. "You finally know," he said quietly. Something inside me broke. "You knew?" He nodded. "We all knew. Who are you?" He took off his glasses. "My name isn't Robert." He smiled. "It's Vincent." My blood froze. The old man from the gate. The security guard. Vincent Graves. He had been waiting for me. All along. He pulled out a gun. "Your grandfather was stubborn," he said. "He spent 40 years protecting you." I couldn't move. "I spent 40 years waiting." My heart pounded. He stepped closer. "You know what Walter's biggest mistake was?" He smiled. "He loved you." Then he pulled the trigger. The explosion echoed through the storage unit. But I wasn't dead. Vincent looked shocked. I looked down. The bullet had struck a metal box I had been carrying. Without thinking, I threw the box directly at his face. He fell. The gun slid across the floor. I ran. He screamed behind me. The next 10 minutes felt like a nightmare. I ran through rows of shelves and vehicles, while Vincent chased me. He knew the building. I didn't. Eventually, I found myself trapped in a loading bay. No exits. Vincent walked toward me slowly. Gun raised. "It's over." I looked around desperately. Then I saw it. An old fuel truck. My grandfather's old fuel truck. Suddenly I remembered something Grandpa had taught me when I was 13. Every machine has a weakness. I grabbed a wrench from the floor and threw it at a pressure valve. The valve exploded. Fuel sprayed everywhere. Vincent fired. The bullet missed. I grabbed a flare from an emergency box and held it up. His face changed. "You won't." I thought about my parents, about my grandfather, about 40 years of fear. "Watch me." I dropped the flare. The explosion shook the mountain. I woke up in a hospital 3 days later. My entire body hurt. The police were there. The FBI was there. Apparently, my grandfather had secretly prepared for this possibility. In the storage unit, investigators discovered decades of evidence against Vincent and his criminal network. The truth finally came out. My parents' murders were officially solved. Vincent Graves died in the explosion. The world learned who Walter Carter really was, but they never understood the most important truth. He wasn't a billionaire. He wasn't a businessman. He wasn't a criminal hunter. He was a grandfather. A grandfather who sacrificed everything to protect one scared little boy. 6 months later, I returned to Silver Peak Mountain one final time. Most of the storage unit had been emptied. Only one box remained. It contained a final letter. Ethan, if you are reading this, then you survived. I knew you would. You always were stronger than you believed. I never wanted you to inherit my money. I wanted you to inherit my courage. The world will remember me as many things, but if I did one thing right, I hope it was raising you. You were the greatest part of my life. And no matter what you discovered, remember this. I never lied when I told you I loved you. Love always. Grandpa, for the first time since his death, I cried. Not because I had lost him, but because I finally understood him. Some people leave behind money. Some leave behind secrets. My grandfather left behind a lifetime of love, hidden beneath a mountain, and somehow that was worth more than everything else combined.